aboard the Inland Empire Express. 10:50 a.m., leaving no listeners behind. KCAA.
To Money Talk, I'm Jesse Torres.
And I'm Aaron Michael Sanchez.
All right, Aaron, it is Wednesday, and normally I'd say it's Wednesday 4 p.m., but in my case today, it's Wednesday 7 p.m. Here, that's right, Aaron. I'm coming to you from the 12th floor at the beautiful hotel, the Eden Rock here in South Beach, and it's awesome. I love South Beach.
Wait, South Beach? Do you mean Florida?
I mean Miami. That's right. Yeah, I'm here for the IMTC World Conference where I'm speaking this week. Actually, I'm speaking tomorrow morning, and it's beautiful out here. What a great time! It's just now started. The sun has just fallen and it's starting to get dark, and the lights in South Beach are starting to come on. And what a great place! I mean, we normally come at folks from the South Bay, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, and today I'm coming at you from a slightly different beach. Where are you, Aaron?
I am actually in Los Angeles. I'm actually on the freeway, to be very honest, and I'm tapping in via Skype. You gotta love technology. You gotta love technology and what it can do for us.
That's right. Well, and if you recall, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where we actually interviewed the fellow that created the mobile app for Skype. And I believe it was called the Quick app, and he ended up selling that over to Skype and making his bundle of money. And so thanks to Richie for that, for enabling you and myself to connect today. So, Aaron, I'm excited for today's show. We've got a great show. I know you are going to be particularly interested in the topic that we're going to be speaking about today. And it's pretty apropos. Like I said, I'm here in Miami at the IMTC conference, which is the International Money Transmitters Conference. And the entire week so far has been not only about just money transmitting, but probably a third of the conference here this week has focused around cryptocurrency, alternative payment systems, and things of that nature. And Bitcoin, obviously, Bitcoin has taken a lot of the press.
When you say what was it?
Cryptocurrency. Yeah.
What does that mean? Is that like I pay through my phone and it's like encrypted, or what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, essentially, what it comes down to, it's a digital currency. It's a currency that's not in the physical world. It's one that's maintained on a server somewhere. And these folks, these Bitcoin folks, and these exchanges that are developing. In fact, this afternoon I spoke to a fellow who just developed the first Bitcoin exchange in Mexico, and so he and I were chatting for a little bit, and this is becoming more and more popular. I don't think it has the buy-off yet that a lot of folks are looking for, but certainly it's something to continue to watch. And so I think we're not it's not too far off before we actually start exchanging these digital currencies, these alternative currencies, and so I think it's important for us to kind of talk about the different iterations that are out there today. I mean, you, Aaron, you do a lot of work in the digital space and social media and things of that nature, and I think I might even have sent you a payment or two by way of Pop Mail, a peer-to-peer platform, and so it's probably we're not too far off where maybe we stop exchanging cash for the most part, and maybe cash becomes just a minor piece of what we do, and most of it is handled in some other means.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the cash gets bunched up in my pocket or it just falls out for whatever reason if I don't have my wallet. But, people are concerned nowadays, too, with security of that because it is in a digital format. And I mean, we look at all these like credit cards that are stolen or the credit card numbers. And I mean, I guess the question is, the more we rely on technology, do we have to rely more on the security of it? How do we safeguard ourselves on that? I'm sure that's a different topic for a different time, but, concerns a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just heard that AT&T got hacked.
Oh yes, you
this week.
posted that. Did you
That's
post that?
right.
Yeah. What's up with AT&T?
Yeah, AT&T is no. It doesn't really matter how big or small you are. The federal government, AT&T, Home Depot, Target. It really doesn't matter how big you are. And you make a great point in that as we move towards these digital currencies, as we move towards non-cash based economy, security does become a big issue. And in my opinion, I studied information security. I'm a CISSP, which is a Certified Information Systems Security Professional, and so I actually attended a place called Foundstone, which is a hacking institute in Orange County, and I tell you, that place scared me more than anything because it really just made me aware that it doesn't really matter how hard you lock something down. There's always going to be a way to open it up. And so anyway, so you're absolutely right. I think as we move down that road, I think we need to make sure that we do whatever it is that we can to protect ourselves, but certainly have some fail safes or some sort of control, some backup controls that will allow us to sort of protect ourselves, protect if we're a business, protect the consumer, and if we're these exchanges, protect everyone that's participating. So on the phone, talking a little bit about non-cash or going cashless, on the phone we have Bob Bagga. And Bob Bagga is the CEO and president of a company called BizX. Bob, welcome to Money Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bob, you heard a little bit about what we're talking about, and we talk a lot about, and I got to be honest, we talk a lot about Bitcoin, but to be honest with you,
yeah.
I have no idea what this stuff is. You are the CEO and president of a company called BizX, which is a company that has created what is termed to be a private currency. And you're in the business of sort of bringing the sharing economy to the business community. Can you sort of just kind of give us a high level, and we'll dig into this a little more, but can you give us sort of a 30,000 foot level of what private currency is and what you mean by sharing economy?
Yeah. So BizX is a community of businesses, today almost 4,000 businesses that buy and sell amongst each other. And rather than using cash, we use our own currency, BizX dollars. And the advantages to doing this is that businesses are able to now pay for products and services, and they don't have to write a check. They're able to use their capacity or their inventory to pay for something. And it was based on going back to before currency was, if you think about it, the barter economy where people traded goods and services amongst each other directly.
Right.
And I have a cow, you have some chickens, let's trade. The problem was we both would have to have what each other wanted in the same time, and so that's why money was invented. And so non-cash transactions like barter was still fairly large and prevalent, but very inefficient. So we've taken this concept and taken it to the next level where we've got a community of businesses that can all buy and sell, and they get all the benefits of something like barter where they don't have to use cash, but in exchange, rather than having to worry about what each other has and to keep track of it, we've used all the attributes of money and have our own currency, and in our case, BizX dollars. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so in this case, for example, let's say I sell shoes, and Aaron sells those bracelets that he's developing.
Yep.
So long as we're all in this network, if you will, this BizX dollar network, rather than exchanging cash, we can essentially exchange product or services, and then collect these dollars that essentially act the same as the current currency in place.
Yeah, and you talked about how there's so much change going in the financial services world. The big difference here is that it doesn't hit your bank account. It's your products and services. So, for example, if you're selling shoes and I want to buy you shoes, BizX just operates like another method of payment. So if I want to buy your shoes, usually I'd write you a check or use my credit card or use old-fashioned greenbacks, Now I have this new currency. I can pay you with my BizX card, and and my BizX card gets debited, and that's not hitting my bank account. I will owe, let's say, $100 now in BizX dollars. And the way that I have to earn BizX dollars is I have to sell my product or service to other members within the exchange.
Now, I was on your website briefly, and it looks like your current offerings are targeting the small business community. Is that correct?
Primarily, yeah. Primarily small to medium-sized businesses, and we deal with some national accounts as well. But yes, the majority of our business, and businesses typically small or large, buy the same types of things. And
right.
So the types of offerings could be categorized into 4 or 5 key areas, but one big area is media and promotion. So we deal with small local advertising companies to large national radio chains and billboard companies. Printing and promotional products is another area. Office expenditures such as things like desks and chairs and office equipment and telephone systems. Travel and entertainment is a huge area for us. Medical and dental is another growing area for us as well. So whether you're a small or a large business, you're typically buying the same types of things on a day-in, day-out basis.
I'm glad you mentioned radio, that being what we are on right now. How has that helped? Because, of course, radio is kind of a fluctuating medium, and I say that because with the new advents of XM, satellite, and the other, there's a lot of different versions. But how are radio stations really kind of taking this? Because I'm sure they kind of have to go from an old mentality of checks and balances, and now going to this mentality. What's the transition like?
Well, we really help any business that's not running at 100% capacity. We're a great channel to bring them new business that they wouldn't have had. So for a radio station, every spot that goes unsold is lost inventory. No different than a hotel room that goes empty tonight will be lost inventory forever, or an empty table at the restaurant, or an empty billboard, or an empty seat on that airplane. So there's a lot of perishable inventory out there, and BizXchange is a great channel to drive new revenue, new customers to that, and the radio station will earn BizX dollars versus U.S. dollars and get a new customer they wouldn't have had. And they get to record that as revenue on their books, and then at a later time when the radio station needs to buy something like new T-shirts or pay for their company holiday party or buy some billboards or wrapping their new cars, they can pay for it with BizX dollars. So it just effectively works. It's just another method of payment.
So Bob, kind of walk me through. So let's say, let's do a practical walkthrough here. So, I go out and I speak and I provide workshops on social selling, and I will charge an employer, let's say, $1,000 for a half day workshop. Wanted to, and so I go through and I have those that say, hey, this is great, we'll pay you, and I have others that just say, you know what, I'm not really sure I want to spend that money at this time, but I say, okay, they say, but I've got these BizX dollars. We'll give you 1,000 BizX dollars, 1,000 BizX dollars. How would I, if I were to say, well, you know what, that's fine, it's got value. How would I, as a small business owner, let's say, begin the process of establishing myself within this BizX network? And then how would I then also, prior to making my first sale, let's say, and receiving BizX dollars, obtain BizX dollars so that I can maybe go out and buy some printing services to advertise what I do to the community out there?
So that's a great question, and we've made it really simple now, and this is where technology is making a big, playing a big role in our business and helping us grow. But it's real simple. You just go to www.bizx.com, click on sign up. You can sign up for free, and just fill out a little bit of information about yourselves, verify your email address, and now you're a member and you have an account, no different than having a bank account somewhere else. and you would then put up a listing. So you would list your product or service. In your case, it would be your speaking engagements, and now you would have a listing on the marketplace where other members within the community would find you to buy your products and services. In the case that you wanted to buy something before you actually made a sale, you could actually apply for a BizX line of credit. So we've got a number of members who will actually apply for a BizX line of credit versus taking a loan from the bank or using their credit card. You can, if you qualify, and the qualification is highly about the demand of your product or service in the network, but you can use BizX dollars prior to earning them and go about and purchase other products and services.
So, and essentially, that's how you then increase in the sense, the liquidity of this network is by the more businesses that you have in the network, the more that are likely to apply for these lines of credit. The more credit you're likely to grant, the greater the liquidity, because the more BizX dollars that are exchanging. Currently, how many businesses have you been able to bring onto the network?
So we have about 4,000 businesses that are trading. We transact about $80 million a year in BizX dollar transactions, and that's everything from a $5 cup of coffee to we've had artwork that was in the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. People have bought and sold real estate, taken dream vacations, paid for business expenses every day, like their rent, their telephone service, copiers, and everything in between.
And so, let me ask this question real quick, Aaron, before we move off to this topic. You mentioned you get these lines of credit. So does this mean that, unlike, let's say, Bitcoin or other, e-gold that was something of the past, and there really isn't an exchange or a conversion from BizX dollars to actual dollars? Does it strictly stay in the BizX world?
Exactly. That is the big difference. The big difference between us and, let's say, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, for example, is this cryptocurrency. It's a non-cash currency. There's a number of ways to get Bitcoin. So you can mine it, as you've probably heard, with some supercomputers. You can buy it, so you can exchange it with U.S. dollars, and you just write a check for it. Or you can earn it, and that's other people using, hey, I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin. Even companies like Overstock.com and Expedia, they're seeing this and they've gotten on board. What's primarily happening, though, it is being converted to cash or U.S. dollars fairly quickly. And I'm not sure, it's hard to say what the stats are. The one thing I do know with BizX is the money stays in the system. And that's where the whole sharing economy element of this comes in. Because everybody buys and sells amongst each other. They're supporting each other. So you go into a community and you spend BizX dollars. Those dollars are going to stay in that community and come back to you as well. So it's all these businesses are working together, and it's helping them. It's paying it forward. It's helping create jobs. It's increasing economic vitality. It's maximizing, underutilized capacity, and it's helping these businesses increase their cash flow. If you owned a business, if you owned a restaurant, or you have your consulting business, let's say, and you had to spend $1,000 on a plumber, what would you rather do? Would you rather write a check? Or pay with credit card, or would you rather provide $1,000 worth of your speaking engagement time to a new customer you normally wouldn't have had?
Right.
I like that. I was looking up one of your success stories that just happened recently involving a cosmetic dental spa. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Which one was that? We have so many, which is awesome. So was that the one where did he buy the pizza place or something? Okay,
yes,
so
pizza, right. From what I understand, the cosmetic dental spas, they've been a member for almost 10 years of your company. They've improved members' smiles and oral health one transaction at a time. But another BizX member, Extreme Pizza, had an idea. Why not make an Extreme Pizza franchise available, payable via BizX?
Yeah. So Extreme Pizza, Todd, parent, great member, lots of locations, great pizza. Little plug for them. And they buy things like advertising and promotion and printing or various things for their business, and they pay for it with pizzas, where they pay for it, where members can come in and use their BizX dollars. So that's what they sell. But they also sell franchises. So we have all these businesses within our network, and business owners like to diversify and do different things. So I believe that one of our members from Cosmetal Dental Spa, he wanted, I think it was for another family member, wanted to get involved and diversify his business. So he was able to buy a franchise from this company, and rather than writing a check for it, he paid with BizX dollars. So he bought the business using BizX dollars.
Imagine that, Jesse.
No, I mean, that's great. And so I kind of want to speak a little bit more about that, because a moment ago, Bob, you had said, well, this is a great way to move your overstock. It's a great way when you have excess capacity. Can you sort of speak to that piece? In other words, how do you position BizX relative to, because I'm thinking, Aaron, you and I have, we've talked about Groupon, we've talked about Living Social and all of these other inventory excess mechanisms, that intended to move excess, whatever it is, capacity. How does BizX and how do BizX dollars sort of position themselves, or how does this company position itself within that whole world of, and I forget what they call it, the special offer world, I guess.
Yeah, the daily deals world.
Yeah.
That's a great point, and companies like Groupon and Living Social have been very successful, and they offer a great product. I think BizX, and it's interesting you mentioned that. One of our guys on our team, Matt, recently posted a blog talking about the differences, and you can check that out on our website as well. But primarily, there's some fundamental differences, and BizX is a great substitute to a daily deal. At the end of the day, you talk about excess inventory or capacity, and it's all about, can I take on more sales? And so if you're looking at new sales, you have the option now. You can go to somebody like Groupon, and typically when you do a Groupon or a Living Social, in order to do it, it's very price driven. So you're pretty much usually knocking the price down by 50, sometimes 70, 80%. So that's one major difference, where BizX is you're selling it typically at your everyday selling price. And so when you do that, you are, in some cases, bastardizing your brand. You're losing brand value by kind of giving it away. The other challenge you can run into with companies like Groupon, Living Social, is the fact that you're going to now get an instant mob. You're going to get a flash mob of customers. So you'll get a ton of new customers, but for a very short period of time, which puts a lot of capacity constraints on your business. So everybody's stressed out, and there's lots of, you're working really hard for a short period of time. And then on top of that, the transaction fees can range up to 50%. Whereas BizX, we charge a transaction fee. We're between 12 and 15%. So, and lastly, it's the type of customer, and this goes back to the sharing economy point I mentioned earlier. It's the type of customer. With BizX, you've got 4,000 other business owners like you that are coming in and buying your product or service, and versus people that are shopping for coupons and deals, and that's all they're doing. And so a satisfied BizX member is as good as a satisfied regular cash-paying member, and their businesses, and they're going to pay it forward. They're going to tell their friends about it, and that's the community, that's the circle that our members like to play in. So we found that a lot of our members, they've tried it, and it can work well. I'm not completely knocking it. There's certain businesses that Groupon, Living Social, I think it's great for, and a lot of some of our members do both. But if you look at from a high level, this is another great option to be able to sell more products and services through.
That sounds perfect, Bob. We need to take a break here, but can you stay with us for another segment?
Sure, would love to.
Great. Okay, so because I want to talk a little bit more about just this whole this whole concept of bartering, and where you envision it going forward, as well as some of the more practical applications of this alternative payment solution. So. Hang in there, Bob. We will be back in a few minutes. We're gonna go ahead and accept some real dollars from our sponsors here, but we'll be back with a little bit more money talk after these messages.
Dollar bills, y'all. Come on, that
NBC News Radio.
The only station I listen to.
1050 AM.
Welcome back to Money Talk. I'm Jesse Torres.
And I'm Aaron Michael Sanchez.
All right. Well, welcome back. And on the phone, we've got Bob Bagga, the CEO and president of BizX. Bob, thank you for staying on the line with us.
Oh, glad to be here.
So Bob, like I said before the break, I kind of wanted to take a step back. And, you started your career in BizX in this alternative currency, but through an evolution of bartering. Can you sort of kind of take us back? One of the things that we like to do, particularly with our successful businesses, is sort of kind of go back to the beginning and kind of learn. At what point did you sit there and say, okay, I can exchange this can of beans for that loaf of bread, and fine, that's all good and great. He's a great baker. I'm great at making cans of beans. But at some moment, you sat there and you said, there's much greater potential for this than just swapping these goods and these services. Can you sort of take us back to that point in time when you had that aha moment and said, I think I'm onto something much bigger than just a loaf of bread and a can of beans?
So, when we started BizX, we started as a barter exchange, and that is, it's businesses that are more trading with each other, and it's a lot of the same customers that we had that are buying and selling, but it's much more of a barter mentality. And barter goes back, again, like I said earlier, before money was invented, people would trade goods and services. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but 30% of the world's business is it's not cash. When Pepsi went into Russia, they got paid with ships full of vodka because they didn't want Russian rubles. So they took the Scully's vodka, they took them, and they sold them. When Mercedes-Benz went to Ecuador, they were bidding against Saab and Volvo. In order to seal the deal, they were willing to accept $44 million of bananas in exchange for buses.
That's bananas.
Yeah, and they got into the banana business and sold them off.
Wow.
And if you look at it on a daily basis everywhere, and I'm sure trade and barter has been around in the media business for a while. Radio stations have done it.
All the time.
Billboard companies have done it. You look at you look at the barter section on Craigslist. It's massive. It's growing, and we just looked at this, and we had a really good business, and we were using at the time it was a barter business, but we were still using what we called trade dollars at the cents, and without using a lot of technology, lots of people and directories, and just matching people up. And in 2010, we looked at this, and we saw with what was going on. So we saw that technology is changing the way people are going to pay. And, you look at that now with Apple Pay, and PayPal just separated from eBay and Square and all this great stuff that's happening. And then we looked at, you look at businesses that were then looking at, going back to what we talked earlier, like Living Social and Groupon and that whole excess capacity thing. And we're sitting around with my founders, Chris and Raj, and we looked at this and we're like, man, we could create a private currency here. And at that point, we kind of, we sat down and I think we were in L.A. at the time at kind of a founders retreat thinking about this, and we sat down and we said, our vision is to be the world's largest private currency. And this was in 2010. And for a while, we just kept this to ourselves because we're like, well, people are going to think we're crazy. Creating a new currency. There's going to be like people in black cars that are going to show up.
I like
What's
it
that?
that you're saying that because, if you were to mention it to the wrong people, you're getting all this negativity of, no, that can't work because of this, that, and the other. And yet you said, let's do it. Why not?
Well, we did it, and we kind of kept it a little under the radar at the time, and we've been playing with it. So we've been building for the last 3 years. We've been working on building this great technology, repositioning ourselves, rebranding ourselves, looking at the box, and we go, we're not in the barter industry. We are in the financial technology, fintech. That's the box we want to play at. So we've got, we put together, we've got a great tech team that's working on, creating so much robust liquidity within our marketplace, different programs, launched new products. We've got a consumer-facing product called Perks. We've got some great stuff that I can't talk about now that is you'll hear about it in a while, but that is some partnerships that are coming up. But very much reposition it and say, okay, we're taking this old barter model and moving it to financial technology where we can take advantage of these small and medium-sized businesses' excess capacity to help them leverage that, and then take advantage of technology and what's happening in the payment space, and you bring it together, and you've got something that I think can make a huge difference.
That's a great point, and I laughed a moment ago when you made mention of that 30% of the world being barter. Earlier this year, actually, it was over the summer, just as my kids got out of school, we were planning a trip to Disneyland, and I had someone call me and say, hey, can you review this plan for me? And the person was short on cash, and so I said yes. I said I'll do it. It was a person that I've known for a while, and he said, but if you'd like, he said, instead of cash, I've got these Disneyland park hopper tickets.
There you go.
And I was just about to spend almost nearly $1,000 on these things. And so I said, I'll do it. And so, he sent me the stuff. 3-4 hours later, reviewed it, got it back to him, and he sent me these park hopper. And it's funny because my wife had said, hey, are you going to go online and buy some tickets? And I said, yeah. I said, the tickets are coming. And a day later, there they were, and I forwarded the email to her. And she said, well, who is this guy? I said, oh, he's a client of mine, and there are your tickets. And she just laughed. She said, you accepted this instead of payment? I said, it's the same thing. I said, I was just going to take the money anyway and spend it on those tickets. So yeah, I just cut out the middleman. I just saved the time. And so that's you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. I kind of, one of the things that we've talked about here on the show in the past, and I don't know if you do this, is we had a gal on the show not too long ago, and she was one of the she was in the vanguard of the whole affiliate marketing scene several years ago. You stated that you have about 4,000 businesses or so, a few more than 4,000. Do you barter in a sense? I mean, do you exchange BizX dollars with your existing businesses for them to bring new businesses on, or how do you encourage your existing network of businesses to grow that network?
Well, yeah, we give them a referral fee in BizX dollars as well, and it's also in their best interest because I look at it as it's also, and they look at it, it's their exchange, it's their community, and the smart ones really take a leadership role and are helping recruit other members in because of the fact and spreading the word out because it's allowing them more places that they can buy from and sell to. And so, you could put this, oh, we'll give you this, et cetera, but the members that are engaged, you don't have to do anything. They get it. The light bulb's off. They see it as, hey, the bigger this thing gets, it's better for me. It's better for my business. And
Well,
so they help.
I have a question because I looked at your website and it talked about other industries like auto, construction, and I know construction during the downturn was probably hit the most. And because people didn't, when it came to how are they going to pay for the construction services or even just auto repair, sometimes auto shops will do favors, but again, they've done it with how do you equate this to dollars, and now you're giving them the tool to do so. And there's so many auto shops that I think if they had this method of payment, there would be more business to them. Have there been any businesses that you've helped save, or that you've gotten stories that maybe business was on the decline, but all of a sudden they tap into you and now they're on the rise?
Oh yeah, there's a ton. There's a local, there's a plumbing company here that we helped grow from $4 million to $15 million in revenue because they spend a ton of money using BizX dollars on advertising. Same thing every day. I had a company who does graphic design, like a little web design company. Not so little, but they were because of BizX, they were able to save about $70,000. And he told me he was able to go out and hire 2 new employees because of that. So great growth stories, people being able to do things that they normally wouldn't have been able to do. And just going back to your Disneyland story and auto shops, and there's a lot of this going on, and now there's a formal method to do it, which is creating liquidity. Because, going back to that guy with Disneyland, that for example, if you didn't have to go to Disneyland or you weren't going, and he had widgets, you wouldn't be able to. But if he just said, hey, I'll just give you BizX dollars and you can go to the site and buy whatever you want, well, yeah, you could have bought that there. So it's about creating a more liquid, taking that old school way of doing business and bringing it into the modern age.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the less glamorous side of all this. So at the start of the hour, we were talking about AT&T getting hacked and all that information.
Yeah.
One of the concerns, obviously, from any user of any of these alternative, in the paper currency world, our big risk is we get robbed because when we have the money in the bank, generally most accounts will have FDIC insurance, and that money will be insured even if the bank burns down, gets robbed, on and on. In this world, we're guarded more by the security that's created within the networks, within the systems. Can you sort of speak to the extent that you've gone to create a secure network to prevent information security kind of breaches, as well as protecting that information? Because I suspect that's something that's top of mind with all of your businesses.
Well, absolutely, and so we are, we store things in a PCI compliant manner, which is the it's the industry standard, the mandated way. So information is protected. We're also using, and I'm not as technically savvy, but the latest and greatest, security tools that are available to us. But in addition to that, we have one other thing that's really cool about our system, that it's a closed-end system. So God forbid if somebody were to be able to hack into our system, they can't take the money and take it somewhere else. It's within our system. And that's the other beauty of BizX, is that, somebody hacks in and tries to take your BizX dollars and spend it, we can catch it and just take it back. It's not like it could go outside of our network. And so that's one of the other advantages of being in a closed loop system.
Which would be contrary to, let's say, if Bitcoin dollars or Bitcoin were stolen, those Bitcoin could be moved, transferred, into another exchange or into some other form that could then, leave those holders high and dry.
BizX dollars stay BizX dollars within the community, and that's the big difference between us and any other alternative currency. And that's a big advantage because the money stays there, it stays local, it helps the businesses, and there's an extra form of security as well.
So now you just mentioned the closed end or the closed loop aspect of it. I did notice on the website I saw the equivalent of what looks like a debit card. It's a BizX card. It looks like a regular credit card or a regular debit card. Can you sort of speak to the ways in which businesses can gain access to those BizX dollars for transactions?
Yeah. So you get. When you sign up at www.bizx.com, as a member, you get a BizX card, which then you can use either in the online world to make purchases at the BizX marketplace, or you can take that BizX card and go to a retailer, and you go to a BizX restaurant, you have a meal. When it comes time to pay, rather than using your Visa, MasterCard, or Amex, you just pull out your BizX card and pay for it.
And then the other thing, it looks like one BizX dollar. I mean, essentially, the BizX dollar is pegged to the U.S. dollar, so that you don't have to have different conversions. Is that sort of how you work it?
Exactly. So, for example, with Bitcoin, I don't know. Today it's worth $1,000. Tomorrow it's worth something else, and it's floating, and so people are nervous here. We've pegged one BizX dollar is equal to one U.S. dollar.
So, being involved in these alternative or the fintech, as you mentioned it, and particularly in this currency, what do you see in terms of trending? I talk to people all the time, and I got to be honest. I think, and I'm in many cases I'm in the minority, but I believe that all this talk about Bitcoin is sort of overblown, and I think because of a number of factors, some of them being the manner in which the wrong element, the negative element, can sort of abuse Bitcoin. I think money laundering, things of that nature. It seems to me that whole currency is going to have a real difficult time versus something like this where it's in a closed system and you can't convert it to cash. What do you see as you've investigated and researched this? Where do you see the world of currency and in particular digital and private currency going?
Well, I think we're in the very early stages. We're in the early innings of massive technological, psychological, behavioral change. Credit cards are 30 years old? They're not that old. 40 years old?
40 years old,
yeah. So, until it was cash and check, and I still remember the days, where being with my dad on Friday because he had to go to the bank on Friday afternoon to get cash. This is like pre-ATMs. ATMs aren't even that old, right? And so if we've looked at everything else and how it's changed, how you buy a house has changed, how you buy a car has changed, how we store music has changed, everything has changed very rapidly and dramatically in every other industry. What has not changed is how you pay. And how you pay is changing on the front end. So there is the credit cards and the ATMs and the squares, but the difference is it's all hitting your bank account. And it's still costing you U.S. dollar. So I think there's massive innovation that's coming. Look, today, I don't know if you know this, but if you go to Amazon.com and you're about to check out, you can pay for your order with American Express miles versus cash.
I didn't know that.
And that's been around for a couple of years now. Now, the exchange rate is crap, and I think you get ripped off, and it's not a good deal, but that's not the point. The point is you don't need U.S. dollars. And people's mind shifts are changing, and what Bitcoin has done, it's created a massive amount of awareness, and it's created a demand. And so what I see is that U.S. dollars, government-issued currency, does not necessarily have the monopoly anymore. And there will be different ways, and BizX is one of these. But there is going to be, different things, and there's lighter coin, and there's Bitcoin, and this could work or not work. But what it has done is it's opened it up, and it's very early. But the way we pay, be it Apple Pay and all these other things from a technological point of view, that's changing, and then how we pay and what that actual method of payment is also going to change. And we're in the early innings, and BizX is going to be a big part of that. And people are coming to grips with it, very, very quickly. Some quicker than others. But just like we have 4,000 businesses that accept BizX dollars, and we're going to grow this very, very rapidly, and there's huge economic, our business model is there's a huge economic benefit to the participants. Bitcoin, there's some people are doing it because of security. Other people do it just because it's really cool. But it's just, changing that mindset that we don't have to have this reliance on cash. And there's been, traditionally, cash has always been somewhat scarce. It's a commodity that everybody's chasing. And one of my thoughts, and one of my mentors has always shared this with me, is what we're doing is we are monetizing the world's excess capacity. And if you look at it, there's excess capacity everywhere. Whether it's an empty spot on your radio station, there's the empty seat on the train, the empty seat in the restaurant, hours going unbilled at a law firm. This is all excess capacity. And if you think about it, excess capacity around the world is in trillions of dollars. And if you can monetize it with things like BizX, and there'll be other things as well. You can raise a standard of living. You can do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do, and so that's what excites me. And I just think that it's all going to change very rapidly.
Well, again, and I like the fact that you're going back with the barter method. I think the Amish would love you if they could use a little bit of technology, because they'd really be able to capitalize on it. But when it comes to just bartering and being able to, do things, because there's no usually there's no dollar attributed to it. Obviously, it's even more because it's not accounted for. Now that it's accounted for, are there any type of tax implications on it?
It's all above board. So we issue you treat this like another method of payment. So we issue a 1099-B to all the people that are members of BizX, and so anytime they make and the IRS recognizes us as a third-party record keeper. So anytime anybody makes a transaction with BizX and makes a sale, they get a 1099 at the end of the year, and they record this as revenue. Anything they buy, as long as it's a business expense, they expense it, or if it's a capital expense like a copier, they depreciate it. So it's and even if you do direct barter on your own, you're supposed to report it as fair market value. But this just makes it so much simpler. So we've taken, again, I kind of look at it as we've taken this concept of barter and bring technology to it and take it to that next level where it's much more liquid, because barter is not very liquid, and again, that's why money was invented. So you take all the attributes, the economic benefits of barter, and bring them in with liquidity of currency, and that equals BizX.
That sounds great. So, Bob, we've got maybe another minute here. What nuggets of wisdom would you have for those small business owners that have been listening to us the last hour here?
Well, a lot of business owners, this is interesting, don't recognize how much excess capacity they actually have. So, look at your business. Can you take on new revenue streams? Are you running at 100% capacity? And think about what that lost capacity might be. So if you're a lawyer at a law firm and you bill out, you have 8 hours a day, that's 40 hours a week, but you're only billing out 30. That 10 hours at, let's say, $300 an hour, that's $3,000 a week. That's gone down the drain. It's gone. And or how many tables are sitting empty at your restaurant, or how many rooms are going unsold in your hotel. And look at that. And there are ways to monetize it, BizX being one of them. And look at ways where look at areas that you're writing checks for, or look at things that you would like to be doing in your business that you couldn't do. And if you could take that excess capacity and turn it into those things that you'd like to do or that you're already paying for, you could have I like to call it the ultimate efficiency tool if used right.
That's great. Well, Bob Bagga, CEO and president of BizX at BizX.com. Thank you for joining us on Money Talk this afternoon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
And join us next Wednesday, 4 p.m. for another edition of Money Talk.
I'm Aaron M. Sanchez.
And I'm Jesse Torres. Have a great week, everyone.
Listen to me, y'all. Do things, bad things with it. Dollar bills, y'all.